hash browns with a side of ketchup. It is delicious. If you'd like to see how I made this using a few different ingredients from my prepper pantry and cooking it on my backpacking stove, just keep watching. You just got to get prepared. Today I want to share a simple little recipe of hash browns with a side of ketchup. I will be using a few different ingredients. One of them is some potato shreds, and if you like onion, I'm going to be putting a little bit of onion in mine, but if you don't like onion or you don't have onion, that's fine. You don't have to use it. And then once we're done with the hash browns, or while the hash browns are cooking, I'm going to make up a small side of ketchup so we can have a little ketchup to go with our hash browns. So let's make this happen. I'm going to be making a 1 serving recipe. So to make this happen, we're going to take our potato shreds and we are going to add 1 cup of potato shreds to our pan. Then I'm going to be putting some chopped onion in here. I like chopped onion. It just adds a little bit of flavor. You can smell that, or I can smell that when I open that up. I don't want to add a lot of onion, just a little bit, so I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of onion into it. And let that go in there. And then for the water, because this is kind of a grid down practice scenario, I'm only going to try to use the amount of water that we need to have it cook. Oftentimes you'll see recipes where they will add more water than needed and then you pour off the extra. I've cooked this a number of times and I need 3/4 of a cup. So I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup to that. We'll give that a light little stir. Try to get everything kind of mixed around and setting on there so they have a chance to get soaked into the water. Now, to help this process speed up, we're going to place this onto our stove. We're going to bring it to a boil, and then we're going to turn off the heat and let it sit until the potatoes are tender, which takes about 10 minutes. So let's get this stove lit up. Let's see. We'll put our pan on there. I have a little lid here, which is just a pie pan. I'll place it on top, and I'm going to turn up this to get it going. That is on high. I would recommend that you do all of your cooking outside if you're cooking with a little stove like this. But if you choose to come inside to cook for whatever reasons, just be safe. Make sure you're in a clean environment where things won't catch fire. Have some sort of fire extinguisher on hand, and also have a carbon monoxide detector around as well, just so in case something doesn't go right, you don't make a bad situation worse. Okay, I can start to see a little steam coming out of here, so let me check this and see if we're already to a boil. I like to keep a pair of work gloves around so that we can touch things. Oh yeah, that's doing great. I'm going to turn that down. I'm going to turn that off. Wow, that heated up really quick. Let's put our lid back on. Those are already softening up. It won't be long before those are ready. While we give these a chance to hydrate, let's make our ketchup. The ketchup recipe is really simple to make. This recipe just needs a few things to make it happen. The first thing we need is tomato powder. So because we're only going to make a single serving or a small little portion, I'm only going to put in 1 tablespoon of tomato powder. And with tomato powder, we need water. And we're going to use 2 tablespoons of water. So either this particular measuring cup is for 2 tablespoons. So we will put that in there. And then I need 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. I like my ketchup a little bit sweet, so we will use 1.5. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of vinegar. This gives it that bit of tang. And this is just a distilled white vinegar. And we're going to use 1/2 teaspoon. Two other things I like to put in there is a little bit of onion. And for this amount, we don't need much. So I'm just going to give a little shake of that in there. And also just a little bit of salt. And again, we don't need much. So we'll just put a little bit of salt in it as well. And we can adjust that later if for some reason we're not happy with the results that we're getting here. Then we just give it a little stir. What I like about making little things like this, or ketchup, or even these hash browns, is we just, in these scenarios, say a grid down scenario where we don't have refrigeration or we don't have power to make refrigeration, we're just kind of cooking the amount that we need for the meal that we're having. And so in this situation, we're going to make enough ketchup. You can see that is doing really good as far as getting a nice thick little ketchup. That color looks awesome. I'm trying to get a little bit more. Oh yeah, that is great. Yep, that is wonderful. Okay, we'll set that to the side here because that is ready to go. All right, let's get back to the hash browns. Let's see how they are hydrating up. Let me find my gloves. Ooh, look at that steam come off of there. Let me grab one of these little guys here. Those are soft. So, when we've got this removed, let's just take a quick look at it. Give it a little stir around. Now these are warm. You could eat them right now if you want to, but what I want to do is I want to get a bit of a brown on them so that they have more of that hash brown texture to them. Oh yeah, you really could just eat these right now if you wanted to. Let's cook them a little bit more. Let's make this into a hash brown. And the way we're going to do this is I'm not going to use oil. I know if we had oil, most recipes call to use oil, but in a kind of a grid down situation, you might not have oil. So what I do recommend is that you're using a non-stick pan like this one. This is an 8-inch pan. I believe it's from GSI. I'll leave all the links down below for everything that I'm using here so you can, if you're interested in whatever I'm doing, that you'll be able to see these different products. But what we're going to do now is, now that we've got them hydrated, we're going to turn our flame back on. And we're going to be, one of the hardest things with a flame like this is knowing what is low, medium, and high. Where this is high because it can't go up any higher. And then we turn it down until it starts to kind of go down some. You can try to hold your hand over it and kind of see what the heat is, but that's really hard to tell as well. So the best, or a way, I don't know if it's the best way, is you just be careful. You try not to overcook it, and you try to not let it burn, and you're going to use your nose to kind of smell things, and you're going to check it a little bit more often. But we're going to put the lid back on. We're going to let that go for a minute or so, and then I'll kind of peek at it to see if we're getting a brown crust on the bottom. And if we are, we might go a little bit more until we're going to flip it in some fashion and try to see if we can get some hash browns going on here. Some of the things that I like to think about in a grid down situation is that, first of all, there is no power. There's probably no running water. You may not be able to go to the store to get any new supplies. So it is, whatever you have is what you have. And you just do the best you can with that. So in this situation, we're cooking on a little backpacking stove. We've got some canned food that's from our pantry. We have a little bit of water. We're trying to minimize how many supplies we're using so that we don't waste them or run out of them. Okay, I'm starting to hear a little sound here. So let's see what is happening. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Look at that steam. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. We're starting to get a little bit of brown there. I think I'm going to keep that lid off. Now, one thing I like about this stove is it's got a pretty big flame pattern. So it's not just a little one that just shoots up right in the middle, but it kind of spreads the heat around better on the pan. So it'll help it to brown in more areas than just one spot in the middle. I don't know how I'm going to show this to you, but I was starting to get a little bit of brown right in there. You can kind of see right in here we're getting some browning happening. I'm going to let that go a little bit more before we flip it, because I like that crisp, and so I want to get as much crisp on there before we start to stir it and turn it. So as I was saying, we're looking at trying to use the minimal amount of our supplies as possible, yet still provide us the nutrients that we need, and we want to feel as full as we can. And these potatoes are just a great way to give something into your belly. And then by having a simple little condiment like ketchup, it takes something that's not super flavorful, and it adds a little extra something to it, which is nice. And as you could see, that ketchup was super easy to make, and they're all things that are probably already in your pantry. Maybe the tomato powder isn't, but the sugar, the vinegar, the salt, and the onion powder most definitely probably are. So if you had a can of tomato powder, you can very easily make up some ketchup to be able to put on whatever type of dish you're making and to be able to have a side there. Okay, I'm seeing a little more steam here. So let's give it a flip. Oh yeah, look at that. Isn't that pretty? So we're just going to give it another little flip, kind of get some of that fresh stuff down there, and that was pretty cool. So we're getting a little bit of that color there, a little bit of browning happening like you would want to see on hash browns. And what I think is pretty awesome is we were able to do it with a non-stick pan instead of needing the oil. Now if you have the oil, feel free to use it, but usually you might want your oil to go to other things unless you need it here. There will be added calories that would come to you if you use the oil. Can't remember how many calories per tablespoon you get, and they would probably taste a little bit better, possibly with the oil added to them. But what I wanted to share is that you don't need the oil to be able to make this happen. Because most recipes, or probably all recipes that you'll see, will tell you to add the oil to the bottom so that you get that fry happening. And with this non-stick pan, we're able to make that happen without it. So that is really cool. I am pretty excited about this. Let's give them another flip. They're starting to brown here. One of the hardest things that I have with is patience on letting them sit long enough to get that brown. I want to get in there with the spatula and give them a stir more often than they need, which takes the browning away, because that potato needs time to sit against the pan to be able to get that brown crispiness to happen. And if I turn it too much, then that does not happen. So when you're looking at supplies to store for your food storage, think about things that will cook easily, things that your family will like to eat, things that will last a long time. I know that, say, potato shreds, they come in different little packages that you can store on your shelf. The number 10 cans are probably going to store for a longer time period than the little cartons or containers that you can get at the store. But it might be nice to have a variety. Like if you were to buy these for long-term storage, but then test out this cooking with the little carton containers of hash browns, you could test these, make sure you like them or know how to cook them, and then be able to have that recipe in your preparedness folder so that you have some good recipes to be able to share with your family. Oh my goodness, look at that. I was talking, being patient, and now I'm getting some beautiful browning on those hash browns. I'm going to give those just another minute. Like I said, once we put that hot water in there, they were ready to eat. Now we're just adding a little bit of color to them, a little bit of flavor with that browning. I'm hopefully not using up too much fuel, because that's another thing you want to keep an eye on, is how much fuel you're using. Try to keep that to a minimum so that your fuel will last as long as possible for you. So let me just give this one more minute. That is doing so well there. What we got it here, let's give it a little bit of salt and pepper. Let's see, we got some pepper here. I like pepper as well, that looks nice. And we've already got our salt out over here. Potatoes seem to like salt. So we've got that going on there. Let's give them one last stir. That looks awesome. I'm going to turn off the stove. One nice thing is with this lid that we were using, we can use it as our plate. Or we could eat directly out of the pan, depending on what we've got going on here. But for today, I'm going to dish these out onto here. Oh my gosh, those look so good. Now as you can see, our pan is almost completely clean. With these non-stick type pans, the potatoes won't stick. If you had a stainless steel or other type of pan, those potatoes might have stuck right to that pan and you would have a chore to try to clean all of those out. But with this setup, they just came right out. All right, it's time to see how these hash browns are doing. You can still see the steam coming off of them. We've got our little bit of ketchup here. That all hydrated up really nicely. Look at that. That looks awesome. All right, let's give these a taste before we put the ketchup on. Just so I want to see how they're going to do there. And then we'll try some with the ketchup. Mmm. That is good. You get a little bit of the crunch from the browning. Now, there's not a lot to say. It's just a grated potato that we put some onion in. And you can kind of taste there's a bit of onion in there, and then the salt and pepper. And that, as is, would be great. Let's get one more bite here with that ketchup. Oh, that is good. That ketchup adds a whole nother element to that. Look at that bite. And for being so easy to make the ketchup. Put it on everything. Well, that is delicious. Anyway, I'm going to eat this. I hope this helped you to see how easy it is to use your food storage to make something very simple. We didn't have a lot of ingredients. We made a simple dish, and this would feed me. If you needed to make more, I probably wouldn't make more in this pan. I think this is an 8-inch size pan. You could go with a 10-inch or a 12-inch pan and be able to feed 4, 6 people up. Depending on the pan, you get more. You can feed more people by having a bigger pan to cook in. Hey, once again, I'd like to thank you for your time, and may God bless you as you prepare every needful thing. Thank you.